An important thing to have if you have parrots, I know, they each have their own cage. Or maybe you have two because you know that they're so much happier when they have their flock, a mini flock that's with them 24/7, and the two are in the same cage. So why is it important to have a backup cage? It's empty. What's the point? Isn't it a waste of money? And doesn't it just take up space? Hey guys, I'm Kaylin, the author of The Parrot Bliss Bond, Get to Know African Grey and Cape Parrots, my latest book, Feathered Splendor, and I'm working on a fourth book, The Perfect Apartment Parrot. In this video, I'm going to talk to you about why I think you should have a backup cage, give you 3 good reasons, and help you have hopefully a more blissful bond with your parrot. In today's video, I've got Ursulus, my Mexican red-headed Amazon, and Max's Tail, my Cape Parrot. And we're going to talk about why I think it's important to have a backup cage. Number 1, if anything happens to one of your parrots and they start to fight, when you have, 2 parrots in one cage, you want the ability to put one in a backup cage so that the fighting doesn't get worse. Sometimes parrots kind of need a timeout like that. It's possible that if you put them in separate cages for half a day, an hour, sometimes that's all it takes. Sometimes it just takes 10 minutes. Then they kind of rebalance, they kind of come back to a proper mindset and they come back to being together. Hi Ursulus, I don't have another one for you. I just had that one. Oh, you've still got some in your mouth. Good morning, how are you? Yeah, you're busy eating, huh? Number 2, if one of your parrots starts to look ill, you, depending on the circumstances, might really want to separate the 2 parrots so that they don't both get ill. Or sometimes when one parrot is ill, I think it's sort of a law of nature that another parrot, or certainly a flock, if the first parrot is sick, they will put it down, I think, to shorten its misery. It looks kind of mean and evil and cruel because it's kind of like they all turn on the weak one, but I think it's really an act of compassion. You, however, have the ability to take your parrot that's sick, the first one, to the vet. So if you separate them in 2 different cages, then hopefully the second one won't get sick, and hopefully the first one will have the ability to wait for the vet appointment in a safe, secure place where it won't be bothered, it can rest, and now, because they're in 2 separate cages, you can maximize the chance of letting them both, one recover and one stay healthy, and then eventually get better. The third and last reason you might want a spare cage, and by the way, that spare cage, it can just be a carrier, a decent sized carrier that if you need to, you can leave your bird in for like a day in an emergency, so that it gives you the time to go out and get another cage if you're like, these 2 are just not going to get along anymore. And sometimes that does happen. You have 2 parrots that, especially when they're young or for whatever reason, they really get along, they're doing great together, and then all of a sudden something changes. Sometimes it's hormonal, and it can happen. I had someone who had 2 parrotlets. They were both boys. They were from the same clutch, and they were like this. And they were like this for quite some time. Then one day, one of them kind of started being mean to the other one for whatever reason. I think it was hormonal, but sometimes you don't really ever know for sure. But because my friend had 2 cages, she was able to separate them, give them some time apart. It kind of gave the second one an opportunity to rest, to, believe it or not, kind of change its mind, kind of toughen up a little bit. And then she was actually able to bring them back together later. But she gave them some time separately, I think a couple of weeks, maybe even a month, so that they each would sleep in their own cage, and when they were out together. It really gave time for the dynamic between them to rebalance, and for the second one to kind of get stronger within himself, maybe because he didn't feel like he was being bullied anymore. Parrots do have the ability to kind of bully each other. There's definitely a pecking order, and sometimes the pecking order is led by a leader full of love and compassion, and sometimes it is led by a little bit more of a bully. So it's important to make sure that you have that second cage so that you can give both of your parrots the space when they need it to make sure everyone stays healthy, safe, and also to really make sure that that second parrot that was being bullied or that isn't feeling well gets the time away to really relax without having to sort of like be on guard, watching the other bird, watching what they're going to do. It gives them time to just totally let go because now they're totally by themselves. And they don't have to worry about being bullied. It lets their body really hopefully get a chance to repair itself without having to also be on guard. When we're on guard, we don't get to rest all the way, so the healing process isn't the same and it isn't as strong. Make sure that you always keep 2 cages, especially if you have something like 2 birds that are like this, but they're 2 different species. You never know when something could change and when you might need that backup cage or at least that backup carrier to just continue to ensure the health and well-being of all your parrots. Hopefully that changes how you see having a second cage, especially an empty second cage, or at least, like I said, that carrier, so that you are prepared no matter what. Sometimes another thing that can happen is you can have some sort of emergency situation where you need to leave town, and that carrier might at that point be the only thing that you could take with you so that you could take your parrot. So it could be really important. Always about helping you improve that blissful bond, and that blissful bond improves when your parrots are as healthy and happy as they can be. Thank you for joining me in this blissful video. If you want to find out about my YouTube group, if you want to find out about some of my awesome parrot merch like this t-shirt, about my favorite rescue, or about my books, then check the links below. Please be sure to give me one of these and a comment. That helps my juice, and I'll catch you in the next feathered video. You're such a good bird, aren't you? Hi, Ursulus. Hi, sweetie. Hello, my Ursulus. Give me a kiss. Good boy. What a good kiss. You want to go back with Henry? Yeah, is that why you're looking like that? Leaning in and looking at Henry? Okay, you can go back. All right, cutie pie.